The early 80s was a great time for film, wasn't it? I mean, in 1982 alone, we got E.T., Secret of Nim, Poltergeist, Gandhi, Sophie's Choice, Blade Runner, Airplane. Like I said, great year. However, there was one company during the early 80s where most films they released were not only box office bombs, but they haven't even had DVD releases in the UK and Ireland. And that company was Disney. Now, I bet you're probably not wondering, Disney the conglomerate? Aren't they like really big or something? Well, no, but actually yes. Right now they've been stuck in a rut after COVID struck in 2020, and the company's image has badly collapsed. However, their films have been their films have been bombing again and again. However, this isn't new. Like with every company, they get themselves stuck in a rut and find a way out, and Disney is no different. There are a few examples of this happening. The 2000s when their films bombed harder than Boston, the late 1960s when Walt Disney himself died, although this only damaged the company's morale, and even as early as 1928 when Universal took Oswald the Lucky Rabbit and some of Walt's animators, leading to Walt creating Mickey Mouse out of spite, which is hilarious to think about. However, the mere mention of the early 80s will bring fear into every single Disney fan, no matter how depraved they are, as that was the darkest and most depressing period of time the company was ever stuck in. The animated movies were making less and less money, despite receiving good reviews. The old animators were leaving and new ones were coming in, and new management from outside the company was coming in, including Jeffrey Katzenberg, Michael Eisner, and Frank Wells. And this was the beginning of Disney losing the grip of their own company, the Disney family. However, the worst part of this was the films. For the entirety of the company's life at that point, they had only made G-rated films for families. Granted, some of them had daring imagery, depression content, and nightmarish sequences, but it showed kids could handle more than parents thought. However, in 1979, Disney released their first PG-rated film, The Black Hole. It was a moderate success at the box office, but it received mixed reviews from critics. However, the ensuing 4 years would be some of Disney's worst in the history of the company. At least in the current rut they're in. Some of their films are making a lot of money, even if it's not $1 billion. But during this period of time, none of their films, G or PG, made over $70 million. During this time, they made 11 PG-rated films. The Black Hole, Midnight Madness, The Watcher in the Woods, The Devil and Max Devlin, Condor Man, Night Crossing, Tron, Tex, Trenchcoat, Something Wicked This Way Comes, and finally Never Cry Wolf. They also made Popeye and Dragon Slayer, but those were co-productions with Paramount Pictures and aren't on the list of Disney films on their D23 website. Now, I bet none of you have ever even heard of some of these films, and for good reason. Disney has gone out of their way to make sure that some of these films look like they never even existed. However, in this endless ocean of despair, sadness, and money loss, there was one film that stood out. It didn't make a loss, but it did two things itself that made an impact on something else. Like the character himself, he saved Disney from death. Tron. This film not only saved Disney from collapsing in on itself, but it also revolutionized special effects and brought CGI into the mainstream. Now, it wasn't a big success. It only made $50 million on the $17 million budget. This is because an a-hole Disney executive, Card Walker, decided that its Christmas 1982 release date should have been moved to the summer, as it could compete with The Secret of Nim, a film by one of their former employees, Don Bluth. But it ended up competing with E.T., Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Blade Runner, and Poltergeist. So, thanks Walker, you piece of crap. Now, enough of today's history lesson. Next time we'll learn about early Pixar. Let's look and see if this film holds up today, or should be thrown away like the old computers after this movie was made. Tron follows Kevin Flynn, played by Jeff Bridges, a talented programmer who used to work at Encom, a computer programming company. He created some impressive games, but his ideas were taken by Ed Dillinger, played by David Warner, a fellow programmer who eventually became senior vice president and ended up firing Flynn. Fellow programmers Alan Bradley, played by Bruce, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I won't in case I botch it up, and Laura Baines, played by Cindy Morgan. The latter being Flynn's former girlfriend, as we're led to believe in the film. Flynn has been trying to break into the system and find the files that will prove to him that Dillinger stole his ideas, but keeps getting stopped by the Master Control program, also played by Warner. The three programmers decide to team up and stop him, but before Flynn can break into the system, the MCP transports Flynn into the computer world, where there lives a species called programs who believe in users. Like a sort of religion thing. Flynn now realizes that in order to prove that Dillinger stole his ideas, he has to find Tron, also played by what's-his-name, a program created by Alan to monitor the entirety of the cyberspace and bring freedom to all programs. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, the CGI. As I said before, this film revolutionized CGI and brought it into the mainstream view. I can't show it obviously because this is still a Disney film after all, and as we know on the internet, if you show anything from Disney, you get crucified. That's just how it works. But importance doesn't always mean good. The importance of old CGI. I mean, look at Trolls 2. Does the CGI hold up 42 years later? Honestly, yeah. Of course, it looks extremely dated by today's standards, but it's unfair to call it ugly because of what year it was released. My point from my Andre and Wally B review still stands. CGI from the 1980s somehow looks better than most CGI nowadays because they had the time to make it the best they could, instead of having to make 5,000 TV shows in 2021. Looking at you, Marvel. Even though it doesn't hold up, it fits the movie style well, as computers back in the 1980s weren't exactly the best either, so the old CGI fits. One of the criticisms that people had when this film came out in 1982 was that the story was incoherent. Well, I'm here to denounce that. You don't have to be a computer programmer to understand the story. For example, I'm not a programmer. Hell, I don't even know how to use Excel. Trying to navigate that place is like being in a maze with no exit while being chased by Pennywise from the Tim Curry Ish. I understood the story pretty well, and I think it's a very unique story that is this film's own. However, I do have criticisms about the story. 1. The film doesn't really end, it just stops. That's a problem with a lot of movies like Alice in Wonderland. Fight me, I do not like that film. It's just not my thing. And 2. Throughout the part where Flynn is in the computer world, which is most of the film, we never see what's happening to Alan or Laura, which I think is quite odd. One, they find it weird that Flynn's side suddenly disappeared. Also, I would like to, see. Yeah. The second story problem also applies to the human characters aside from Flynn and Dillinger. The only character we get from Alan is that he's snarky and sarcastic, and Laura is smartish. Sure. Flynn is an interesting character. He's both a combination of really snarky and egotistical, but also caring and smartish. I also like how Dillinger isn't just evil and has no personality, like most villains in Disney films. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Most villains in Disney Channel films. That's what I meant. Disney villains are still the best part of their retrospective films, except for Wish. I don't know. And for films that don't even have villains, like Strange World. The villain is the family drama. Woo! But yeah. So what I was saying was that Dillinger isn't just evil and has no personality, like most Disney Channel villains. He has a side where he begins to regret creating the MCP and realizes that he should be stopped. But the MCP has become too smart and begins to blackmail him. The music is also really good and has a lot of techno synth. But unlike the Treasure Planet, the Bulgarian Treasure Planet, not the Disney one, it actually fits. My favorite track in the film is the one that plays at the end of the film. Of course, the film also has the only other song that Journey made that people know aside from Don't Stop Believin', and it's great as hell. A perfect representation of the early 80s. The cinematography and editing is also very well done, but another criticism I have of this film, although this one is very minor, is that the characters look like pajamas, the costumes. This isn't a dig at the costume designer, as, again, they had to work with what they had. I think they improved the designs for the programs a lot more for the sequel, and especially the animated show, which I like how for the animated series they kept the program looking grey, as that was sort of an inconvenience back in '82. So because I haven't said this before, but I think this is a good quote. Your disadvantages early in your career could become your advantages later. Take that for what it's worth, or not. I don't really care. Yeah. So I also think that the action is very good, but nothing special. Well, that's all I really have to say about this film. The action's very good, the cinematography and editing is well done, the music is great, the pacing is fast, the story is unique, even with a few inconsistencies. The characters are somewhat interesting, the performances are standard, and the effects, while dated, really fit with the movie, and the whole 80s aesthetic neon theme. I highly recommend watching this movie if you want to see where modern CGI came from, or if you want to see the one big success Disney made during their darkest time, the one light at the end of the darkest tunnel in the company's history. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to continue searching for these early 80s Disney films. Because, as we all know, Disney just won't release Midnight Madness on the UK DVD market. Bye. Okay, this is a not post editing. This is Nos, the character RichTRM. This is the person that wrote this. I just realized I had a whole bit at the end where I would put in a DVD of Midnight Madness in the computer and it would actually work. But I'm on a really massive time crunch. I've been shown that I can watch Midnight Madness on the computer, but I'm on a massive time crunch and I really can't, and I really don't have the time. So I'm stuck with telling you that, just telling you this. So yeah, I don't know. Just like and subscribe to the video, and bye, I guess.